Despite its bright natural color, weed may not be as environmentally green as you thought. A new study out of Colorado State University found that growing just 1 kilogram of dried cannabis could produce up to 2 to 5 tons of carbon emissions. That's quite a hefty carbon footprint. As states across the nation move to legalize marijuana, including New Mexico, New York, and Virginia in just the past month, the cannabis industry is booming. With more product comes more energy demands, and consequently, more carbon emissions. This is Hailey Summers, a PhD candidate in mechanical engineering at Colorado State. As one of the authors of this recent study, she was able to break down some of its key findings.
Growing cannabis indoors leads to a significant amount of emissions, and that there are some simple ways to reduce that. It's hard to imagine a perfectly carbon neutral indoor situation for cannabis, but I think we can get close.
Unlike other agricultural industries, there hasn't been a lot of research done to date on the environmental impact of cannabis production. And with legalization becoming popular in recent years, Summers argues that the time to act is now.
It's still rapidly growing and states are still legalizing all the time, and we're still not talking about it. Like it's almost 2% of our state's profile, and it's only been around for 6 to 7 years. Why aren't we paying more attention to it?
In Colorado, one of the first states to legalize marijuana in 2012, emissions from their thriving cannabis industry make up 1.7% of the state's overall carbon profile. And overall, it appears the main reason why the cannabis industry has such an environmental impact is simply because so much of marijuana growing is done indoors, in large climate-controlled warehouses. Which leads to the obvious question, why indoors?
Theft is a big one, right? Like the ability to have a really secure environment for growing your product. From a regulatory perspective, that's really good because then it can't get in the hands of people that it shouldn't be in, right? And there's also quality control. So if you can keep your temperatures and your humidities really, really constant, that allows you to generate a reproducible product. When we first legalized in the state, there was an early policy that was focused on vertical integration. And what that means is cannabis growers and retail had to be co-located. And the most logical way to do that in downtown Denver was to be in a secure, enclosed environment.
While calls for legalization on the national level are more prominent than ever, stakeholders from state officials to the national leadership and even various environmental groups have remained silent over the cannabis industry's environmental impact. Evan Mills, formerly a senior scientist at the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, has conducted research on the impact of small-scale marijuana grows for over a decade and proposed a theory as to why there is so little dialogue around this issue.
This is a generalization, but many of the constituencies of environmental groups are also cannabis consumers. And so there's a perceived reputational risk of attacking cannabis.
But we don't need to lose access to marijuana to improve the industry's efficiency. Encouraging outdoor grows where feasible and mandating energy-saving updates to indoor facilities can make a big difference.
If some of the simple ones that we're talking about, like mandating LEDs, that's, yes, it's expensive to start, but once you get going, you're going to pay those off so quickly, and then you're lowering your operational costs.
Mills also points out that the current presidential administration appears primed to deal with this sort of issue due to their current priorities.
Here now we have the Biden administration coming in, and they're going to be looking nationally at legalization. They're obviously looking at climate, and so here's this moment.
The cannabis industry is only going to grow, so we need regulatory action now in order to ensure its long-term sustainability.